when somebody buys more? What are the reasons for them buying more? What problems are they solving? Those are big indicators of the business if it's performing well and if your customer management program is working.
Hello and welcome to a whole new episode of Engati CX. I'm your host Chandani, and we're really glad to have all of you join us today. On this show, we talk to CX and tech experts from around the world. We explore, uncover, and share fresh insights on creating experiences that your customers will remember and look forward to. Engati is the world's leading multilingual, no code digital CX platform available across 14 channels with 45,000 solutions created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc. magazine, Tech World, CIO magazine, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 400,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest, Miranda Dziekonski is a Senior Vice President, Customer Success and People at Swiftly Inc. She's a ground up builder with a passion for setting up the right teams, processes, systems, and overall infrastructure to take both the team and the company to the next level. She has over 20 years of experience, both working in and building world class operations and extensive experience building and scaling teams in early and mid stage startups. Welcome to the show, Miranda. We're really glad to have you on today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come on. Very honored to be here and excited to talk to you guys.
Same here. But before we dive into our interview with Miranda, don't forget to subscribe to Engati and tap on the bell icon below to get access to exclusive content from thought leaders around the globe. So, diving right into the interview, Miranda, my first question to you is, how can we understand consumer behavioral psychology in a B2B sphere?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when I'm thinking about this, consumers in the B2B world purchase and use products and services that make their lives easier, solve for inefficiencies, and help them achieve their goals. So purchases tend to be well thought out, driven by budget, and driven by a problem that they're looking to solve. So if you think about B2B, it's business to business. Generally, those consumers, as I said, are purchasing things that are going to enable their businesses, enable their teams to be more efficient, solve for a certain problem. So that's really, probably the driving factor if we think about it from behavioral psychology.
Absolutely. And I think us too, being in a B2B space, a lot of companies actually are also trying to solve the problem of, how they can evolve better and get better digitally right now, because that is the whole situation, right? So now that you spoke about the problem, right? The problem that we are seeing is how remotely they can access different customers, or how digitally they can access. Any views on that?
Yeah, I think, 2020 and now we had to change a lot as businesses. A lot of us had to go to a remote only environment, remote first in some instances. I know at least here in the United States, some offices are opening back up, but we have a hybrid workforce, which means we have to think about how we support and solve our customers' issues differently because they're working differently. So that is definitely, true and a factor and at the front and center. It should be at the front and center of everything we're doing and trying to solve right now, thinking about how B2B purchases or B2B behavior has changed or evolved over the last year and a half.
Absolutely. So, moving on to my next question, Miranda, how to deliver a great B2B customer experience, and what are some B2B customers' top three performance indicators?
Yeah, so to deliver a great B2B customer experience, first you have to understand what does a great customer experience mean to your customer. So if you design this from, a business perspective without taking in the customer insights or understanding what customer experience they have or that they require to be successful, then you're not going to be successful as an organization. You have to really design your overall customer experience with the customer in the center. Some of the top measurements and that I always look at, and yes, these are internal measurements. They're a bit lagging indicators, but they do tell the story of what's going on. It's definitely NPS, which is your Net Promoter Score. That is the survey that we all probably have received in our inboxes at one time or another, saying on a scale of 0 to 10, would you promote our company? And I think that, there's a lot of controversy right now around, is NPS relevant anymore? And I say, yes, it's very relevant. It's less about the score though, and it's more about the trend and more about what you do with that information once you have it. So follow up with your detractors and understand why they are detractors. What about the customer experience isn't working? Thank your promoters for promoting and ask them too, what about this customer experience has been working for you? So you can learn from that. And then talk to your passives and ask them, what would it take to get you to be a promoter? Is there something in the customer experience that's missing? Next is the measurement of net retention. So net retention is the measurement of have they purchased more and are they renewing? Just to put it very simple. So customers that are achieving value with your product or have a good customer experience, they're going to stay and they're going to expand. So that's a number that I look at on a monthly basis. Last is the overall customer lifetime value. Again, I know that's an internal measurement, but taking a look at your total portfolio and over the life of the portfolio, has it consistently been growing? Have the customers been churning out at a certain point? Or if they make it past a certain point, do they go on to be wildly successful and continue to partner with you for the long run?
Absolutely. So, while you spoke about understanding the customer's needs, right, and acting on them, uh, personally, I had this one question that when the customer base is too large and spread across the globe, which is usually the scenario for a lot of businesses right now. Everybody's going global because of the whole digital era. How do you understand your customer's problem then, owing to a large audience?
Yeah, it does become more challenging the larger your customers are. I historically work in smaller and mid size startups. So I usually work with smaller groups. However, I've worked for companies where we have had tens of thousands of customers across the globe. That's where segmentation really comes in and becomes key. Understanding the problems that certain groups are solving for, and there are multiple ways you can do that. One, of course, you could watch user data, see how they're using your product, and back into it that way. Two, you could always interview some of the customers and understand what they're solving for and how they're using your product. The odds are, unless you have a very broad product, like I was a previous employee with HelloSign, which was electronic signature, and you could use that a multitude of ways. Unless you have a broad product like that, you probably have something that is more specialized. So you know that there are generally like 5 to 10 things that your customers could potentially do with your product. Segmenting and backing into it that way helps you understand which group is doing what and what experience you want to help them have.
Perfect. I think that answer really helped. So, moving on to my next question, how do you see technology evolving over the next 10 years? And how effective is the chatbot and live chat integration as a tool in this digital transformation era?
So I have a hard time, seeing what technology is going to bring us in a year. So I can't even imagine what 10 years is going to look like. I will say I do think AI will be more present, but it will need to feel like a human is driving the action and not a bot. Do I think chatbot and live chat integrations is an effective tool in the digital transformation era? Sure, absolutely. But where you will lose your customers is if it starts feeling like it's a chatbot. If the customer is reaching out and they want to talk to somebody about an issue they're having, they have an expectation most of the time that they're talking to a human to get their issue solved. Um, I don't know if that's going to change over the next 10 years. I think, consumer behaviors have been evolving and changing over the years, right? So you have a group of folks that prefer not to reach out to support. They'd rather go through your help center and figure out how to self-help. And then you have another group who would never want to touch a help center and want that one-to-one touch. So whatever, wherever we go and whatever evolves over the next 10 years, I think it has to be very focused and centered around our customers' outcomes and experiences. But I honestly, I have no idea where we're going to be in 10 years. I'm really terrible at these types of questions. So thinking out that far is challenging for me. I it's kind of fun though to imagine. I mean, who would have ever thought 10 years ago we would have things like Slack or, all the things that Slack can do. It's pretty awesome. So I'm sure there's going to be more things like that.
Absolutely. We all hope that it just gets better and better with time. And
Absolutely.
absolutely talking about Slack, Slack is a blessing for all of us.
It really is. It's changed the way people do business. I uh, I joined Swiftly 2.5 years ago, and it was the first company I ever joined where we don't actively use email as a business. We use it to communicate with our customers, but that's it. Everything we do internally is pretty much done on Slack. And it was the first time I had experienced not having internal emails with teams. That's a big change. That's a change for me, and that's a change for a lot of folks who haven't experienced that yet. If you think about, just that shift in mindset that it took for me to be able to evolve and be okay with that, that's what's going to happen with our B2B customer base. We're going to introduce new things. It's going to take a while to adapt and adopt. And then as that adoption just becomes part of, their day to day, then we can introduce more things and more things and more things. That's usually the virtuous circle, right? Or virtuous cycle per se.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree to what been saying. So, moving on to my next question, why do B2B customer experience programs fail? And what are some of your tips to overcome the big B2B CX challenges?
So first and foremost, one of the biggest reasons why B2B customer experience programs fail is they forget the customer perspective. They are very focused on their internal desires or internal outcomes and not as much on the overall customer experience. I also see that there are companies sometimes that just get too big, and they focus too much on efficiencies. They focus too much on their business metrics that the customers get left behind. And I get it. You do have to focus on scale, efficiencies, all of that. But you need to do so in a way to where you keep your customer again at the center. Um, Focus on your customers' desired outcomes, the desired experience. I've talked about this before, but if you go to a whiteboard and you think about this is the experience I want my customer to have, and you talk to them and validate that this is the experience that they want to have, then you back into it and understand what are the things that need to happen internally to help them with this experience. You're going to have you'll have a more well-rounded customer experience.
Absolutely. And Moving on, how can we measure the right indicators of business and customer management performance?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit, but it's really centered around your NPS, your net retention, and the overall lifetime value of your customers. Um, I think it's important that you're always looking at churn, you're looking at renewals, you're looking at upsells, cross sells, all of that, and understanding when someone churns, why do they churn? What are the reasons that they're churning, and are these preventable reasons? Learn from that, grow from that, evolve from that. When someone renews, why are they renewing? Um, what can you learn from that and help it infiltrate other parts of the business? The same with upsells and expansions. When somebody buys more, what are the reasons for them buying more? What problems are they solving? Those are big indicators if the business, if it's performing well, and if your customer management program is working. It seems simple, but if you're looking at your NPS, your net retention, and your overall churn and renewal numbers, it's going to tell you a story about how well you're doing.
Absolutely, and I think programs like the Voice of Customer, the VOC program, and all of those come into picture here, and they can be of really great help there.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of voice of customer programs. I think a lot of companies try to do a voice of customer program, but usually fail. Not to be controversial about it, but it's hard. It's hard to run a good voice of customer program. A good voice of customer program isn't just about data. It's not just about looking at your customer satisfaction and the reasons why your customers are reaching out. It's about bringing the customer's voice into your organization. One of the things that I've done at previous companies is every month we would have a customer actually either come into our office if they were local, and do a lunch and learn with them and ask them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Or we would have them on video conference where we could ask them questions about, what's working well, what's not working well, how hard was it to work with our APIs, what was it like embedding this, implementing it. And we would have a huge turnout from the company. Folks were incredibly interested to have those direct conversations. Even folks in engineering would show up and ask questions about, API documentation and how are we doing with this and that and the other. So I think, yes, there should be a metrics component to the voice of customer program, but don't forget to bring your customer in to the voice of customer program.
Absolutely. So, before we wrap up with the interview, Miranda, are there any other sound bites you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, the last thing I will say is just focus on the customer's desired outcomes and the rest will follow. If you're, to build a solid business, your customers have to be achieving their outcomes again and again and again. And they need to know that they're achieving their outcomes. So it's not enough for you to check the box. You should partner with them and help them realize the value that they're achieving with your product or your services.
That was really, really helpful, Miranda. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Your insights are really valuable, and I know our audience is going to really enjoy this interview.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me on today.
The pleasure is all ours. So, we'll be back with a new episode and a brand new expert soon. Stay tuned, and we'll see you around for the next one. Thank you.